Hi dear students, a warm good morning to all of you, and today we are going to talk about a topic called the biopesticides. The term biopesticide is quite familiar to all of us, and as the term implies, it is a biological agent which is being used to control a pest. Now what is a pest? A pest is any insect or animal, which could be insect specifically speaking, which could be what harmful towards the plants, livestock, as well as crops and all that. So when you're using a biological agent to control a susceptible pest, it is called as a biopesticide. Now this biological agent could be either a microbe, so it becomes a microbial biopesticide, or sometimes it could be a plant derived product such as a plant derived biochemical agent. So in such cases, you can define biopesticides as biochemical pesticides that are naturally occurring substances that control pests by non-toxic mechanisms. And generally speaking, they are living organisms or their products. Now, the products could include phytochemicals, microbial products, or even their byproducts, which can be used for the management of pests that are injurious to the crop plants. If you go to consider the term biopesticide, you can consider two different categories: botanical or biochemical biopesticides or the microbial biopesticides. Now, the botanical or the biochemical biopesticides, it mainly includes plants as well as plant-derived products. Now, for example, you can use neem, pyrethrum, pongum extract, garlic extract, rotenone, cinnamon extract, jojoba oil, capsicum extract. All these could be used for the control of pests in crops. So, they are referred to as the botanical or the biochemical pesticides. Sometimes the plant as such is used, or sometimes the product or the extracts of the plants are being used as pesticides, biopesticides. Now coming to the microbial pesticides, we mainly have fungi, bacteria, virus, nematodes and protozoa. Since we are dealing with microbiology, we are concentrating mainly on the microbial biopesticides, and the coming classes as well as discussions on biopesticides will be more related to the microbial pesticides. Now the term, do remember, the term biopesticide doesn't mean that it is only the microbial pesticide. It also includes the plant or the plant derived biopesticides. But since we are dealing with microbiology, we are dealing with only the microbial biopesticides in the coming sessions. Now, if you look into the biopesticide market, you can see that you can classify them into different forms. Based upon their source, we can divide them as microbial and biochemical. Then, based upon their formulation, they can either occur in liquid form or they could occur as dry form. And based upon the categories, sometimes they could be microbial biopesticide, plant-based biopesticides, or the biochemical pesticides. The plant-based is just the plant is used, and biochemically means the extracts of the plants are being derived and then biochemical products are being used. And depending upon the crops on which it is acting, it could be either acting against the grain. It would be protecting the grains sometimes, it would be protecting the seeds or sometimes the fruits and the vegetables. And the mode of application, it could be either by soil spray, seed treatment, or even by the foliar spray. And based upon what it acts, the biopesticides can be divided into bioherbicides, biofungicides, as well as bioinsecticides. So this is I think you got a broad outlook on what is the biopesticide and how can it be turned in different ways based upon its action, its formulation, its source, as well as its applications. So coming to biopesticides, they have a good attributes, many good attributes compared to the normal pesticides. The first and foremost is its ecological benefit because it is inherently less harmful and less environmental load is being created by a biopesticide. Because quite often we are familiar, we use certain chemical pesticides. They remain undegraded within the environment, and the load of that chemical pesticides might be transferred from one trophic level to the second trophic level, or continue throughout to different trophic levels of the food chain. But in the case of biopesticides, basically they are being considered to be as ecologically beneficial and less harmful. The second point which we have to say is a target specificity. Usually the biopesticides are defined in such a way that they affect only one specific pest, and or in some cases a few target organisms. And the quite reverse is in the case of chemical pesticides, which affects a wide range of organisms. But here, every biopesticide has a specific mode of action, and so it will affect only on a limited targeted organisms. Then, then comes to the environmental beneficiency, often effective in very small quantities, and they decompose quickly, and thereby resulting in the lower exposure and largely avoiding the pollution problems. This is a continuation of the previous one. The environment is also being benefited from it because we need only less quantities and they are getting degraded. And it is suitable, and it is because as a component of the integrated pest management programs, and because you can use different pest management programs together, and the microbial biopesticides, they can be used in combination with other pesticide formulations also. So integrated pest management program is being possible by using biopesticides. So compared to the chemical pesticides, the biopesticides outstands in its environmental friendly nature, its target specificity, as well as a suitability in the IPM programs. Now let's move on to the bacterial biopesticides. Bacterial biopesticides are quite common and cheaper form of the microbial biopesticides. And quite often we can see that the most common variety of the bacterial biopesticides includes Bacillus species. Now, Bacillus species, it's an extremely large group. It is present in an extremely large area of environments, like it can be in the soil, water, seawater, and even in the extreme environments like hot springs, they are available. And bacterial insecticides, if they have to act, they have to be eaten to be effective, and they are not contact poisons. So it doesn't mean that wherever you put a Bacillus species or a Bacillus biopesticide, it will serve as a biopesticide. Unless and until this Bacillus is being ingested or eaten by the contact person, by the target organism, it will not serve as a biopesticide. And insecticidal products comprised of a single Bacillus species may be active against an entire order of insects, or they may be effective against only one or a few species. So depending upon the type of Bacillus what you're giving, it might either act on one particular type of insect or a group of insects which are of the same order. Now let's have a look onto some of the examples of Bacillus species which are used as biopesticides. The most common one is Bacillus thuringiens, and there are they are available in the market at different trademarks, and they can act at different organisms like different insects. Now for the control of caterpillars, the larva of moth and butterflies, you can use it. Then the larva of Aedes and saurophon, mosquitoes, and black flies and fungus gnats. The larva of Colorado potato beetle, elm leaf beetles, adults, and all these can be controlled with the help of Bacillus thuringiens. Now, even the wax moth caterpillars, which are being found to be a threat in the honeybee hives, that can be controlled by the strains of Bt. Of course, different variant varieties are being used, but the organism is just the same, Bacillus thuringiens, but the variants of different variant strains are being used over here for different insects. Now, in addition to Bacillus thuringiens, you also have various species like Bacillus populi and Bacillus lentimorbus, as well as Bacillus fericus. So, the species of there are a wide range of Bacillus which could be effective against different insects. Now, why do we have to choose Bacillus always? Bacillus is something which is a well-studied organism, and specifically speaking, Bacillus subtilis is also well-studied. And generally speaking, the USFDA has granted Bacillus subtilis as a generally regarded as safe status, which is that means because it is not pathogenic. So this is of course an essential with respect to its application as a biopesticide. Now, if you're using an organism as a biopesticide and if it is pathogenic, it doesn't make any sense. So you should choose a bacteria or any microbe which is being found to be what? Non-pathogenic. Now, in the case of Bacillus subtilis, it is non-pathogenic and hence it is referred to as generally regarded as safe. And another feature which enables Bacillus to be an effective biopesticide is that it produces spores which are highly resistant and dormancy forms capable what happens, it is capable of forming spores even at high temperatures, unfavorable pH and the lack of nutrients or water, etc. So even when the environmental conditions become unfavorable, they can withstand and survive in the phytosphere. Now, if you have a biopesticide which is okay growing well in the lab, but it is not able to grow in the stressful environment of the soil, then it doesn't make any sense to consider it as a biopesticide. So you need to choose a biopesticide which could be able to grow nicely in the lab also, in the lab conditions, as well as even if you apply in the soil where the nutrients are variant, the temperatures are variant, even in such conditions, the bacteria should be survived. Now, in the case of Bacillus, they are such species, and Bacillus subtilis is something which meets up all these demands, and hence it has been used as a good biopesticide. Now, since Bacillus thuringiens is the most widely used biopesticide right now, I would like to talk about Bacillus thuringiens and its mode of action. Now, this bacteria is weakly toxic to the insects as a vegetative cell, but during sporulation, it produces an intracellular protein toxin crystal, the parasporal body, which will act as a microbial insecticide for specific insect groups. So, the parasporal crystal, after exposure to the alkaline conditions in the insect's hingut, breaks apart to release a protoxin. And after the protoxin reacts with the protease enzyme, the active toxin is being generated. And 6 of the active toxin units integrate into the plasma membrane to form a hexagonal shaped pore through the midgut cell. And this leads to the loss of the osmotic balance and ATP, and finally to the cell lysis of the target organism. So the direct contact of Bacillus thuringiens with the insect or just surface contact does not cause it. Once it has been ingested by the target organism, when if Bt is in a sporulating stage, it will produce an intracellular protein called the parasporal crystal, which under alkaline conditions in the insect hingut will break to produce a protoxin. And the protoxin, so first you need alkaline, it needs to enter the hingut, it needs to be ingested, it needs to reach the hingut, and alkaline conditions should be exposed, and then it should also react with protease enzymes, and the active toxin is being released. So within the cell, within the hingut, what happens? This toxin will integrate into the plasma membrane and it will create pores in the midgut cells, leading into the osmotic imbalance. You can have a look of this, the mode of action. The first one is the toxin binding to the phospholipids and the insertion into the membrane, and the aggregation, the toxin units will get aggregated, and what happens, a pore is being formed, and the efflux of ATP happens and osmotic lysis happens within a cell which has been within an organism in which Bacillus thuringiensis has been ingested. And another thing which we not to talk about BT is that it is of important. It has become a very important industrial microbe because the toxin is widely marketed as a bioinsecticide BT, and the toxin genes can be used to genetically modify plants. Now, if you go to consider various varieties, you can see that there are various genetically modified organisms also, and transgenic plants expressing the Bacillus thuringiensis toxin gene cry for crystal, they have been generally been accepted. In 1996, commercialized BT cotton, BT potato, and BT corn were introduced in the US and soon after that into various countries. And the widespread acceptance of these plants reflects the history of safe application of BT as an insecticide without the adverse environmental or health impacts. And it is well understood that the cry protein can only be activated in the target insects. And long-term studies have also shown that BT is non-toxic to mammals and it is not an allergen in humans. So various cry genes have been genetically engineered and transferred into the plants to form transgenic plants so that they could be resistant to various pests. Now, for example, these are some of the examples of the different cry genes which are being put into the control of various pests. So with this, we come to an end of the bacterial biopesticides. Thank you for now.